Have you ever reached a point in your life where nothing seems to make sense? Where waking up already feels like a struggle and the weight of the day begins before you even get out of bed? If so, breathe. You're not alone. Welcome to the Office Mind Code channel. Today, we'll explore the book After Fatigue Comes Courage, a motivational guide for those who want to get up after falling, find strength amidst chaos, and remember that you can still start over, even when you're tired, even when you're scared. There comes a time in life when we simply get tired. Tired of chasing after others, tired of trying to fix what won't come back, tired of pretending we're okay so as not to worry anyone. It's the kind of tiredness that isn't physical. It's truly of the soul. You wake up, do what you have to do, but nothing seems to make sense. Everything becomes a burden, and no matter how much you try to hide it, deep down, you know, you can't go on like this anymore. There are things we only understand when we reach our limit, when our body demands a break and our mind cries for help, and it's then, exactly then, that change begins. Because when you can't pretend anymore, the only way out is to truly look at yourself, and sometimes, looking at yourself is the hardest part. It's facing what you've avoided for years. It's admitting that you too make mistakes, you too fail, you too get lost. But it's also at this point that the turning point comes, because when the truth comes, it sets us free. No one changes overnight. We change little by little the way we do, stumbling, falling, getting up again, and that's okay. Some days the strength comes, and some days it just doesn't. The important thing is to keep trying, even if it's automatic, because real motivation isn't that beautiful fire you see on social media. It's the stubbornness of someone who won't give up. Some people will call you weak, who will say you complain too much, but no one knows the weight you carry. Only you know the effort it takes to get up every day and continue being kind in a world that keeps pushing you down. And that's strength, even if no one sees it, even if no one recognizes it. Life has a strange way of teaching. Sometimes it knocks you down to wake you up. And it's painful, it's confusing. But then you understand. It was supposed to get you out of the wrong place. Some doors only open after others close, even if, at first, it seems unfair. The truth is, we only begin to truly live when we stop insisting on what's already over. Don't wait for someone to come and save you. No one will. Salvation comes when you decide you've had enough, that you can't keep putting yourself down, blaming yourself, hiding. There comes a time when you need to take control of your life and say, enough. No more begging for attention, no more putting everyone else before yourself. Those who always put everything off end up getting lost along the way. And yes, starting over is scary. Your mind comes up with 1,000 excuses not to try. It won't work. It's too late. I can't do it. But do you know what's worse than trying and failing? It's not trying and spending the rest of your life wondering what could have been. Fear only disappears when you move, and when you move, even slowly, things begin to change. You don't need to have everything figured out to take the first step. It goes as it is, messy, tired, confused. Life doesn't wait for us to be ready, it moves on, and those who don't keep up get stuck in yesterday. And yesterday is gone. You can't live in the past, waiting for the future to knock on the door. Time passes whether you like it or not, and if it's meant to pass, let it pass while you try. The turning point begins within. The day you wake up and decide you want a lighter life. Not a perfect life, just a life that fits you. Less pressure, more peace. Fewer toxic people, more silence. Less rush, more truth. Because what's real stays, and what's yours arrives, but only when you stop chasing what isn't. So, breathe. You haven't failed. You're just in the middle of the process, and that's what the process is, confusing, slow, and full of ups and downs. But it's the process that shapes who you will be later. Everything you're going through now will serve a purpose in the future. It will make you stronger, calmer, more aware. And one day when you look back, you'll understand that the enough you said was the beginning of your turning point. At some point, we all face emptiness. Not the emptiness of loneliness, but the kind that appears even when there are people, noise, and plans around. It's the inner space that opens when everything that was important no longer moves, when certainties fade and the heart realizes that living isn't about having, it's about enduring what one is. Emptiness is a silent teacher. It teaches through discomfort, through absence, through the forced pause that life imposes. The mind tries to fill it with distractions, promises, routines, but nothing lasts for long, because emptiness doesn't want to be filled. It wants to be understood. And those who have the courage to listen to it discover something rare, that the meaning of life lies not in answers, but in the ability to remain curious in the face of mystery. Anxiety arises from the fear of looking within and finding nothing. Human beings fear silence because in it, everything that has been repressed begins to speak. Thoughts return, old pains whisper. The questions we've avoided stare back at us like mirrors. But it is precisely in this confrontation that lucidity emerges. It's not about conquering the mind, but about understanding it, about realizing that thought is merely a reflection of the fear of feeling. Motivating yourself in the face of emptiness is learning to befriend your own silence. It's sitting with your soul and saying, I am here, even without understanding. It's faith without religion, courage without witnesses. It's the act of continuing to build meaning while everything seems to fall apart. The person who learns to live with emptiness becomes invincible, because they no longer depend on the world to exist. They are self-sufficient in presence. Overcoming, then, ceases to be a race away from pain. It becomes a return. Returning to the beginning, to the essential, to the part of yourself that always knew the way. Pain doesn't disappear, but it changes location. It ceases to be a wound and becomes wisdom. And when wisdom arrives, the rush disappears. Life becomes a journey, not a test. Some people confuse motivation with noise, as if enthusiasm needed to make noise to be real. But true strength is silent. It arises when you choose to begin again, knowing it can hurt again. That's where the soul of human movement resides, in the courage to try, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Emptiness is also a mirror. It reflects everything we are when the world forgets us, and what we see there, without masks, without applause, is what truly defines our essence. The mind seeks achievement. The soul seeks meaning. And meaning, sometimes, lies simply in continuing to exist honestly. To motivate oneself is to understand that emptiness is not the end. It is the interval between one cycle and another. It's the silence before the music, the darkness before the dawn. Nothing is lost when one pauses, it only transforms. And it is in this invisible space, where time seems to stand still, that the truest new beginnings are born. Emptiness teaches what noise tries to hide, that life doesn't want us to be happy all the time, it only wants us to be conscious. And consciousness is what transforms suffering into wisdom, failure into a path, fear into humanity. In the end, emptiness is the most patient teacher there is. He waits for us to tire of searching outside so that we finally have the courage to return within. And when that happens, silence ceases to be a threat and becomes home. Motivation isn't a pretty speech. It's a silent battlefield within the mind. It's the moment when no one applauds you, no one believes you, and yet you decide to keep going. Because deep down there's something inside you that refuses to accept the end, even when all seems lost. Life tests every fiber of your soul. It wants to know if you truly want what you say you want. And almost always, before giving you what you seek, it strips away everything superfluous. It strips away haste, pride, the disguise of strength. It leaves you naked before your own fear so that you discover what true courage is. Motivation isn't about being excited. It's about being clear-headed. It's about knowing it will hurt, that the path will be uncertain, and still saying, I will, not out of heroism but out of awareness, because giving up may ease the moment, but continuing transforms forever. The self-help the world needs doesn't come from ready-made phrases. It comes from the courage to look at yourself without masks, from understanding that no one is coming to save you, from accepting that maturing often means giving up the illusion of control, and that there's power in simply saying, "I'm not okay, but I can still try." Motivation isn't born in victories. It's born in losses. On nights when the ground disappears and the soul must rebuild itself. It's there that human beings discover their own size, not the size of muscles or fame, but the size of the consciousness that endures chaos and still finds beauty in it. Life isn't about winning, but about remaining whole when the wind changes. Overcoming is moving forward with scars that still hurt, but without allowing them to define your destiny. Pain, when understood, becomes fuel, and every tear that once weakened you will one day make you wiser. Have you noticed? The force that truly changes the world doesn't make noise. It happens in silence, in the dark, the moment you almost give up, but you don't. It's an invisible instant that no one notices, but it's there that the miracle of continuity happens. The soul reorganizes, the chest breathes again, and life offers you another chance. Motivation is understanding that fear will always walk with you, but that it doesn't need to guide your steps. You can feel it and still move forward. You can tremble and still act. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's decision. And decision is what separates those who talk from those who live. True self-help doesn't elevate you above pain. It teaches you how to navigate it. It shows you that failure doesn't make you small, it makes you human. And being human is the only requirement for starting over as many times as necessary. So, if the weight of the present suffocates you, breathe. Not to escape, but to remember that there's still breath, and as long as there's breath, there's possibility. Motivation is that invisible breath, the air you take when you think you have nothing left and suddenly realize you can still go one more time. Life doesn't expect us to be unshakable. Whoever told you strength is not crying lied. True strength is admitting when your chest hurts and, even then, continuing to breathe deeply. It's recognizing the cracks and transforming them into openings to the light. What strengthens us isn't rigidity. It's the flexibility to accept that we are not eternally firm. From an early age, we learn to hide what makes us fragile, to disguise fear, error, imbalance. We grow up believing that vulnerability is weakness, but it is precisely therein lies humanity. Because being invincible is a fantasy. What makes life beautiful is the fact that we can break ourselves and still rebuild ourselves. There is a quiet courage in being who we are, and not molding our essence to fit other people's expectations. The anxious mind wants control. It wants predictability. But the heart knows that meaning is revealed in improvisation, and this is what life is, a constant improvisation between what we plan and what fate decides. Motivation doesn't come from shielding yourself from the world, it comes from allowing yourself to feel it fully. The joys, the pains, the unexpected, the emptiness. It's impossible to be fulfilled if you live running from your own shadows. Vulnerability doesn't diminish you. It returns you to the true dimension of being. Limited, flawed, sensitive, and therefore deeply alive. True self-help doesn't promise perfection. It invites you to be honest. To say, I don't know, I'm afraid, I'm tired, and still keep going. Because the value of a soul isn't in the absence of failures, but in the ability to learn something from each one. Failure, when viewed lucidly, is just the soul changing shape. There's a quiet beauty in those who carry on without applause, in those who rise without an audience, in silence, simply because they know the world won't stop to wait for them. This is the strength no one photographs, the one that happens behind the scenes of the soul when you choose to believe in yourself on a day when even you don't seem trustworthy. Vulnerability is allowing yourself to be real, And being real is the foundation of any lasting transformation. Because when you feign strength, you only postpone collapse. But when you accept fragility, fear loses its power. Acknowledged weakness transforms into wisdom, and embraced pain becomes a path. Human beings spend much of their lives trying to prove something. But there comes a point when proving becomes tiring, and what remains is the genuine desire to simply be. This is the moment of maturity, when you understand that being whole is more valuable than being admired. Motivating yourself, then, isn't about being invincible. It's about being honest. It's about looking within and saying, I've fallen, but there's still movement within me. It's about understanding that perfection is sterile. Growth is born from imperfections. And each time you allow yourself to feel, your soul expands a little more. Vulnerability is the cradle of courage because it demands surrender. It demands that you relinquish control and trust is the noblest act a weary heart can perform. It's not about believing that everything will work out, but about believing that you will be able to handle whatever comes. In the end, being imperfect is what connects us. We are all unfinished versions trying to learn to love the process itself, and when we finally stop hiding behind strength, we discover the lightness of simply existing. Courage isn't in overcoming everything, it's in continuing, even knowing that not everything can be overcome. There are pains that didn't come to punish, but to awaken. Life, in its silent wisdom, knows what needs to be broken for something new to be born. And almost always, it's what hurts that opens the space. Losses, falls, disappointments, they are invisible tools that sculpt the soul, stripping it of what is superficial, leaving only what is essential. In the beginning, we resist. We want to understand the reason for suffering, as if pain needed to make sense to exist. But pain doesn't explain. It reveals. It reveals how much we cling, how much we fear the uncertain, how much we flee from the void. And when we finally stop resisting, we discover that suffering is not the end. It is the beginning of a new way of being. Purpose is rarely born in times of peace. It emerges from the ruins when the old no longer serves, when the mind tires of fighting the inevitable, and the heart begins to listen to what it has always known. Purpose is what remains after despair, the spark that remains lit even when faith fades. It is the voice that says, there is still something to be done, when all around seems silent. Transforming pain into purpose is the most human act there is. It is the alchemy of the soul, the ability to transform what hurts into something that awakens. It is not romanticizing suffering, it is understanding it. Because while suffering is blindness, understanding is vision. And seeing your own pain honestly is the first step to freeing yourself from it. There's a point in the journey where pain becomes a teacher. It teaches humility, presence, and compassion. Those who have broken down know how to recognize the sound of others' pain. And that's why the people who help the world the most are those who have bled in silence. Empathy is born from wounding, and it's when we stop hiding our scars that they begin to heal others too. Motivating yourself after pain is an exercise in rebirth. Not the rebirth of those who forget, but of those who integrate. Everything that broke you is now part of your architecture. You're not lighter for having overcome, you're more whole for having made it through. And there's an almost sacred beauty in those who rebuild themselves consciously, because these people walk with a serenity not learned from books. The purpose isn't in applause, it's in the silent utility of existence itself. It's realizing that each fall has brought you closer to who you truly are. And that living, ultimately, isn't about winning, but about evolving your perspective on what happens to you. Life doesn't want you to always shine. It wants you to learn to see, even in the dark. There are those who spend their lives running away from pain, but there are also those who decide to look it in the eye. They discover that it's not an enemy, it's a map. Each wound points to something that needs to be understood, something that demands attention, that demands presence. And when that presence arrives, pain transforms into direction. It ceases to be a burden and becomes a compass. Suffering doesn't want to destroy you, it wants to awaken you. But awakening hurts, because it requires you to abandon who you pretended to be. And that's what rebirth is: dying to what was, to be born to what is true. There is no growth without loss, no awareness without fracture, but there is liberation in every understanding. Life is neither fair nor cruel. It is necessary. It gives you what's necessary for you to see yourself, for you to realize there's something inside you that doesn't break. It's this something that pain tries to reveal, the part of you that survives everything. And when you discover this, fear loses its strength, doubt loses its volume, and the soul learns to rest amidst the chaos. Because this is the purpose. It's not what you do, it's what you become as you go through it. Pain didn't come to stop you, it came to remind you that to feel is to be alive. And living, despite everything, is still the greatest act of faith there is. Bouncing back isn't about erasing the past. It's about changing the way you see it. Most believe that overcoming is about forgetting what hurt, but true victory is being able to remember without feeling the same pain. It's about looking at the ruins and, instead of crying over what was, being grateful for having survived. Because surviving, sometimes, is the greatest act of courage a human being can perform. Life doesn't always give us what we want, but it does give us what we need. And almost always, what we need is what challenges us most. Falling, loss, failure, doubt. All of these play a role in maturation. These are the moments when the soul is tested, consciousness is expanded, and pride is shattered. The recovery begins when you understand that pain didn't break you. It shaped you. Motivating yourself after chaos is an exercise in patient reconstruction. It's not about waking up with enthusiasm, but about waking up with purpose. Each new day is a training ground for hope. You get up, even without strength, and act, even without certainty. Little by little, what seemed like despair becomes a learning experience, and what seemed like the end becomes the foundation for something new. The recovery doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small gestures, in a shy smile after weeks of silence, in a calm thought amid fear, in a step taken even with a hesitant heart. These details are invisible to others, but they are personal miracles, signs that the soul is regaining trust in itself. Reader, if you're enjoying this wonderful book, don't forget to subscribe to the Office Mind Code channel. The most common mistake is to believe that strength is about not falling, but falling is inevitable. What defines character is how you get back up. Those who get up in a hurry fall again. Those who get up consciously never return the same. Suffering teaches us about limits, but getting back up teaches us about infinities. Because when you come back different. Less naive, lighter, more attentive, more real. True self-help doesn't promise you victory. It shows you the power of starting over. It reminds you that life isn't a straight line, it's a cycle of loss and rebuilding, and that each new beginning is wiser than the last because each understood pain becomes fuel. The suffering that once paralyzed you now becomes momentum. Getting back on your feet isn't about returning to who you were. It's about discovering who you are after the fall. It's when the ego gives way and the being awakens. What knocked you down wasn't the end, it was the bridge. A mandatory passage to lead you to the next level of understanding. Nothing is lost when there is awareness. Everything transforms when there is presence. True strength is silent. It doesn't shout. It doesn't flaunt itself. It doesn't need recognition. It's the strength that acts when no one sees, that rebuilds little by little, that learns to wait for the right time for things. Bouncing back means learning to respect that time, neither before nor after, exactly when you're ready. And readiness doesn't come from the body, it comes from the soul. It emerges when you stop fighting what was and start working with what's left. Human beings only realize their power when they lose control. because it's in the lack of control that confidence is born. Not naive confidence, but lucid faith. The certainty that life, however hard, is still your ally. You don't need to erase the past. Just let it become a stepping stone, not a prison. Each pain overcome allows you to see the world with new eyes. And this is what a comeback is. A change of perspective. What was once a burden is now a foundation. What was once fear is now momentum. And what was once loss is now a path. Overcoming adversity isn't a destination, it's a state of mind. It's the point where suffering transforms into wisdom and falling becomes solid ground. It's when you understand that what broke you built you, and you realize that nothing you experienced was in vain. Everything served to restore you to yourself. Coming back is a return to your essence. It's when the soul recognizes itself again, when pain ceases to be an enemy and becomes part of the learning process. And in that moment, something silently changes. Haste becomes calm, fear becomes respect, and life, finally, makes sense again. There's a moment, after all the falls, when silence returns. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of pain, but a new silence. Light, clean, almost sacred. It's the silence of understanding. Life remains the same outside, but inside you something has rearranged itself as if every wound had finally found its place. Peace doesn't come as a reward. It comes as an understanding. You stop waiting for everything to be resolved and begin to accept what is. You discover that you don't always have to win, that sometimes it's enough to exist in peace with your own efforts. And that's when the soul matures, when it realizes that continuing is victory enough. The world taught you to fight, but not to rest. It taught you to run, but not to feel the ground. And true recovery happens when you relearn the natural rhythm of life, to breathe without guilt, to pause without fear, to exist without proving anything. There is more courage in a peaceful heart than in 1,000 voices shouting about strength. Motivating yourself at this point isn't about seeking euphoria. It's about seeking harmony. It's about understanding that stability isn't about the absence of emotion. It's about emotional maturity. It's when fear still exists, but it no longer controls you. When the past still hurts, but it no longer defines you. When the future still frightens, but no longer steals your present. Serenity is the highest stage of overcoming because it doesn't deny the pain, it integrates it. Everything that once hurt you now transforms into knowledge, and knowledge brings lightness, not by erasing suffering, but by giving it a meaning that makes it bearable. The soul learns that it doesn't need certainties, it needs trust. The trust that everything has a time, and the time is never against you. It is the process itself. Anxiety loses its strength when you realize that the rhythm of life is the same rhythm as healing, slow but steady, and that each delay is a form of protection, not punishment. Real self-help doesn't shout slogans, it whispers simple truths. It tells you that peace isn't the end of the journey, it's the path learned after the pain. That balance isn't the absence of conflict, but a lucid coexistence with what's still missing. And that a complete human being isn't one who solves everything, but one who has learned not to lose themselves within themselves. You realize you no longer need to fight what you feel. You can feel anger, fear, doubt, and still be at peace, because peace isn't the absence of emotion, it's the awareness that everything is temporary. It's when the soul understands that even chaos is part of the greater balance of things. Calm is a kind of courage, the courage to not react to everything, to choose silence over noise, to trust life even without proof. It's the strength of those who have learned that not everything needs to be resolved, because some answers blossom on their own, when the mind finally quiets. There's power in stillness. It's there that thoughts align, that the heart listens to itself, that the body finds its own time. The world may keep rushing, but you discover that haste isn't destiny. It's distraction, and that living slowly, attentively, and wholeheartedly is an act of resistance. Peace doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise, because only those who have faced despair understand the value of a quiet moment. And it's this wisdom that changes the way you look at life. You stop seeing struggles and start seeing lessons. Stop measuring time by what's left and start being grateful for what remains. Turning things around is an act of strength, but remaining at peace is an act of wisdom. And wisdom, in the end, is what sets you free. Free from haste, free from comparison, free from the need to constantly prove something. You learn to trust your own calm and understand that silence isn't empty, it's direction. When calm becomes courage, life changes its texture. Everything continues to exist, the chaos, the rush, the fear, but none of it dominates you anymore. You stop being hostage to what you feel and become master of what you understand, and understanding is the verb of maturity, the language of the soul that has finally learned to rest within itself. There comes a time when everything changes. The pain tires, the tears dry, and suddenly you realize you've cried enough. It's there, at that point, that the real turning point begins. It's not a miracle, it's not luck, it's a decision. You decide to stop looking back and start over with what's left. Turning things around means understanding that life won't apologize. It moves on, even when you're still picking up the pieces. And if you want to find yourself again, you'll have to do it on foot. You can't wait for everything to go back to the way it was, because what happened doesn't come back. And honestly, that's a good thing. What's left behind shaped you, but it doesn't need to hold you back anymore. The secret is to stop waiting for the perfect moment. That moment when everything falls into place, you have plenty of money, and your mind is at ease. That doesn't exist. Life is now. Messy, imperfect, sometimes tired, but alive. And if there's one thing no one can do for you, it's deciding to keep going. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I didn't get where I wanted to be, but I'm not going to stop because of that. Some people think motivation means being constantly excited. But those who truly live it know that motivation is stubbornness. It's getting up on autopilot, doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. And when you least expect it, the rhythm returns, the spark returns, the confidence returns. Because the body gets used to the effort, and the soul understands the message, we didn't give up. After the upheaval comes the rebuilding. And rebuilding is hard work, it's scary, it's lazy, it's full of doubt. But every small step you take, no matter how small it seems, is a response to life saying, I'm still here. And life listens. It gives you back double everything you truly give. We truly grow when we stop comparing ourselves. Everyone has their own time, their own pain, and their own way of winning. Some people blossom quickly, and others take a while. But the important thing is to never stop watering. Success, whatever yours, doesn't come from talent. It comes from persistence. It's keeping going even when no one sees results. It's believing when even you doubt. And yes, there will be bad days. Days when it seems like nothing has changed. When your head weighs on you and your heart sinks. But these days are part of the journey. They didn't come to knock you down. They came to test you. Because what comes easy goes quickly. But what is achieved through persistence lasts forever. You've been through the worst. Now it's time to build the best. Not in a rush, but with determination. Take what's left, even if it's little, and start over calmly, one step at a time. You don't need to understand everything. You just need to keep going. Clarity comes along the way, not before it. The upheaval is just the beginning. The real challenge is what comes after. Standing firm when no one else is looking. But that's where character grows. That's where you learn the value of your own company. Life doesn't demand perfection from you. It only asks for truth. And those who act truthfully, sooner or later, find their place. So, take a deep breath. You've already overcome what seemed impossible. Now it's time to start over, in a new way. Without fear of failure, without shame of falling, with your heart open to everything that can still work out, because it can. It always can. Life loves those who persist.